live button. Let me check YouTube, make sure that it's all goody. Yes, we are streaming right now.
Is it okay if I play Mario Kart while doing the podcast?
Don't put on the music because that's
Copyright.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Just mute the switch.
My music. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about playing Mario Kart.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, mute the music. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay. Hey guys, we're live now, I guess. So welcome to the 54 podcast. Before we begin, I'm just gonna jump right into the intro, and then we'll get started.
Live from New York.
Oh, I can hear it this time.
Unfortunately, yes.
I've never actually heard the intro before.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's an intro.
It's something.
All right, welcome to the 54 podcast. Today we got Chase Fry as per usual. We got Patrick Kobos fucking finally, and we got Wilson Chicas in the studio today. This is the studio. So everybody, welcome to the podcast. Patrick is. I'm not entirely sure what he's doing.
I'm sewing my pants.
Oh, you're sewing your pants. Okay. There's just a lot of glare coming from your side.
Yeah, it looks like you're sitting in the center of the sun.
It does.
I can see myself perfectly fine. Like I can see myself in the view in the little corner just fine.
I like it how it took us weeks to get Patrick on the podcast, and the first thing he does is sew his pants.
Right. That's fucking. Well, you know, that's always going to be happening. What can you do?
So I'm a busy man, you know. I gotta sew my pants.
So today's a special milestone because today is our 5th episode on the 54.
Damn, I missed that many.
Yeah, we're 5 episodes in. We
Five
somehow did
now,
it.
dude. We're blowing up.
Yeah. You know, we got a whole bunch of different things going on, promotional posters. Our podcast is now available on multiple streaming services, so anybody listening, make sure to just share it about, and please.
Joseph is shamelessly self-promoting.
I was actually about to make that exact same joke, but thank you.
You will, if you do share the podcast and you get it out there for everyone. Joseph will manifest in your room and give you a kiss goodnight.
No, don't tell people that. They're not going to want to subscribe.
Yeah, I know. That's a terrible idea, Patrick.
Will personally tuck you into bed every night.
If you subscribe to this podcast, Joseph will personally lock himself in his room forever so nobody ever has to see his ugly face except when you're watching the podcast.
It'll last a week before I slip my wrists, but you know, that's neither here nor there.
Jesus!
You have to do it for the fans, Joseph.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm going to do it for the fans. Don't worry about that. Jumping off of that
right?
topic.
That's still a thing?
Anyhow, guys.
Does anybody remember Do It for the Vine?
No, I don't, actually.
You never heard that saying, Joseph? Do it for the Vine?
I ain't gonna do it.
Oh, like for when Vine was a thing, before TikTok.
Yeah, before the wars happened.
The wars. Is that what you call it? What do you constitute as the wars, Patrick?
You know, the wars.
That's
What
very
war?
vague.
What, you weren't involved in the incident? You never saw the incident?
What are you talking about?
When everything went wrong. You know, the incident.
What?
I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
It's Patrick's first and last podcast.
So it's 7 o'clock in the afternoon, or in the evening, I should say. Are you high right now, Patrick?
No.
Okay, I'm just
I
making
am
sure.
dead sober.
You know what? I can kind of tell. Because when you're high, you're somehow way dumber than you are right now. But that's okay.
Yeah, we don't talk about high Patrick. He stays in the closet
Chase,
forever.
you're admitting that you're in the closet.
No, high Patrick stays in
Yeah, dude. Watch what you say because I just came up with so many gay jokes for that.
Yeah, it's a hand and wrist guard. Your thumb's supposed to go through here. I think you're wearing it the wrong way.
Wait.
So, what topics do we have for today?
Today, well, actually, I'm going to show you the magical board.
Magical.
Currently, this is all we got.
Can this be my
what?
wearing these?
The magical
Wow,
board.
the creative brain power between you and Wilson is phenomenal.
What the fuck is the magical board?
Can you not see? You can look, if you look up at the screen.
I
you'll-
can see it. I can see it. What's
Too busy
the point?
sewing
I just see a fucking whiteboard that says pussy.
Yeah, those are, so usually on the whiteboard is where we put our ideas. We had like a list of topics.
Which
For,
usually don't have many.
for today, we just have
I'm
this.
putting you on the spot.
So, you know,
I'm
that's
exposing you.
that's fantastic as always. But yeah, so we don't really have any topics, which is great. I mean, it's always a phenomenal way of
Good.
getting started.
Good.
But I was thinking we could just talk about how the world's ending and kind of.
Oh
delve into
yeah,
that.
the planet's doing fantastic.
Yeah, the planet. I think it's doing great.
There's nothing wrong. Everything is fine.
I actually had
Dude,
a pretty
Walmart
good.
is scary.
The world,
Everything
the
is
world is
fine.
collapsing around us, but I've been having a great time.
Have you with the whole apocalypse?
Well, yeah. I mean, my personal life is doing great. Like personally, I'm very happy.
This could be my
Everybody else is in the shit,
This could
but
honestly be my
I'm doing fine.
I'm glad to hear that, Chase. Most people are not. So-
It's like I'm sitting on a raft on a little lawn chair drinking a margarita with a sun hat, and the world is burning behind me. That's kind of how I feel.
What are you doing? That hand doesn't even have the guard on it. Why were you petting my head?
What are you talking about?
Wilson was just petting me. Which
What? You don't let Wilson pet you?
No, it's just a
What
strange.
the fuck is wrong with you?
Anyhow, the world's collapsing. So yeah, I don't know. Patrick, you're participating in one of the in the things. What? Why am I supposed to be quiet about that? Why do we have to be so quiet about that?
What are you participating in, Patrick?
Nothing.
In a
Not
protest.
participating in anything. I'm not participating in anything.
Wait,
You know, it's
Why are you
worse to
pressed-
deny it.
It's worse than
No.
denying because it means you're ashamed of
are
your
you
cause.
straight up participating in a protest?
If you deny it, you're ashamed of your cause.
Yeah, for real. Either be proud of what you're protesting in, or don't protest.
Because if you don't, or if you're not willingly admitting to what it is that you're doing, then
Because
you're
I've
ashamed of
known
it.
what happens to people who get exposed.
What do you mean exposed?
Exposed for what? Everybody's participating in protests.
Change the subject.
What are you talking about? Wait, Patrick.
Dude.
What the fuck?
I think Walmart parking lots are dystopian societies.
Thanks, Wilson. Thank you for the input. How's the weather doing today, by the way?
It's better.
Thank you, Wilson. And now back to Chase with sports.
Oh my God, you guys are being ridiculous.
Why? Go ahead. No, I'm not saying anything. I'm not opposed to talking about this. I don't.
Look, okay? You guys think it's such a taboo subject. I'm not talking just about you, Patrick, but you guys think it's such a taboo subject, so you won't even bring it up. And injustice was done, okay? And we need to talk about it. If we as a society cannot talk about it, then the injustices will continue to be done. Okay?
Exactly. I agree
No,
with
we
you.
can talk about it. Just Patrick doesn't want to admit he's participating in a thing publicly.
Because he's
Well,
ashamed.
Patrick has a stand
Because
for
I'm afraid of what could happen to me.
But what, there are
Okay?
thousands, possibly even millions of people participating in this. Not even in person, maybe just online.
Okay,
They-
yeah, and people have died from being exposed to participating. My face and my name are attached to this podcast now. Is live on the internet for all to see.
So what? But why are you afraid of people? Who are you afraid of? Because the only people that
Yeah.
are going to be coming after you are
Because
people that are
I've
racist.
seen news stories of people who have gotten killed after the fact, after the protest, just for participating.
But then you don't believe in the movement.
It's not that I don't believe in the movement; it's that I don't want my family to be.
anything you're willing to protest for, like I understand you don't want to be hurt and you don't want to be, but anything you're willing to protest for and you feel passionately about, then you should be willing
Yes,
to die.
the general consensus on the internet is that you should not expose protestees just because it puts their safety at risk.
No, it's fine to be a protester. What it's not good to be is like, what is it?
Yeah, are you going out, Patrick? Are you going out there to harm people?
No.
You're going out there to stand up for an injustice that was done and protect those who are harmed.
Yeah.
So
But-
you're doing a noble thing. Be proud of yourself.
The issue is that in going to the protest, I put a target on my back.
But so is everybody else, and they're standing up, and they're standing up without any fear, and they also have families, and they're putting their
And
neck
they
on the
all
line.
also wear face coverings.
That's
Well,
now.
a lot
But
of
do you think
people-
protest? How long do you think?
A lot of people don't wear face coverings. They go to protests without face coverings, and they're proud of the cause.
And how long
The
do you
thing
think
is-
protests have been going on? Face coverings are a new addition because of the pandemic.
Not just because of the pandemic, but because these protests have resulted in riot control.
Yeah, most protests do. Have you
Yeah,
seen the
and
civil rights movement?
And
I don't know what
also,
this is.
because of the events being extremely polarizing, that there are certain groups that would like to see harm to people who are protesting with the injustice.
But do you
It's-
think the majority of people are out to get you, or do you think that's a minority?
It's a minority, but it's still a risk of
But also between you just showing up and someone who is actually like, throwing Molotov cocktails in windows and stuff like that, who are they going to target?
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm sorry,
But
you're not. I don't think you're the prime target here, Patrick.
I'm not saying I am, but I also don't want to
I'm really having a hard time hearing.
If you got a fucking hit put on you because you said you were going to a protest in this podcast, I would be shook.
Well, I'm just trying to be careful, okay?
I get
Okay.
it, and I respect your decision to be a little bit more cautious. But it's also, if you're doing it, you shouldn't be ashamed of putting your identity out there. Because if you're not, then if you just go there, then it just makes it look like you're there just simply to gain clout, rather than actually participate in the movement itself. You get me? So it's still a bad look.
Also going there to keep my sisters and my mother safe.
What's that?
I'm going there to keep, because I'm not the only one going. I want to keep them safe.
Okay. Was it your idea to go to the protest, or was
No,
it
it
theirs?
was not my idea.
Okay. Who?
Yeah, but still, I think you need to I think most people in this country are on your side and are on the side of reason in this.
Yes, but there are certain people who are not.
There are always going to be certain people but you can't live a life in fear.
I know.
That's
Hate groups have always existed. The KKK still exists, but it doesn't mean that you're going to stop yourself from doing things simply out of the fear that there's somebody out there that hates minorities. You can't live your entire life in a bubble because those people exist. You still have to go out there and make change yourself. So,
Yeah.
it's about combating that. That's the whole reason there's a protest, is to combat that status quo. So,
It's to combat the fear.
right.
Because people are tired of being scared. People are tired of being marginalized.
Exactly.
So-
Honestly, I'm also joining because I'm scared for my nephew because he's half Trini, and I don't want him to grow up in a world where he could just be shot for trying to go get a goddamn candy bar from the store.
Exactly. So you have to stand up for those beliefs. I agree with you 100%, but you have to stand up for that. You know what I mean? You can't be scared, because being scared is counterintuitive of the protest itself.
Yeah, I know.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also very new territory for me because I also know that riots have the potential of breaking out. I'm not saying that they will this Friday, but I'm not saying that they will break out. But it's just if something does happen, and I have to defend myself. You guys know I'm a pacifist. It's not easy for me. The whole situation does have me stressed out because I might be put into a situation where I will have to defend myself.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
I
not,
think-
that's not something I normally do.
Yeah.
Defend yourself from who?
Riot police, for example.
Well, they just arrest you.
Yeah, but as long as you're being passive, I don't think it's.
You're not supposed to fight the
It's when
police.
people become impassive that.
If the
situations-
police come in and corner you, they're going to arrest you. You're not supposed to fight them because if you do, then You're another body on the rack. You get me? Like, it's not, you're not supposed to fight them. So, you know, if they approach you, the only thing you can do as a protester, if you want the best outcome, is to just peacefully comply. Or back off, yeah.
The whole point of this protest is because people have peacefully complied in the past.
Right, I agree with you, but you're not going out there solely to beat the shit out of them. Like, that's not the goal of the protest. You understand?
Yeah, I'm not out to beat the shit out of a police officer.
I'm just saying, like, there's different. The protest is there to spread a message, and it's there to insinuate the kind of points that they've been trying to get across. But they're not. You're not going there purely just to, you know, harass officers, even though they've done plenty of it themselves. You're not there to do solely that at the protest.
That's not what I was saying at all.
Okay, well, what were you saying then?
I'm saying this is a situation where, okay, we're protesting because police officers are overzealous in, like, you know, what am I trying to say here? They're overzealous and they use unnecessary force whenever they're trying to, what's that word? When they're trying to detain. When they're trying to detain a potential perpetrator, a potential suspect for, you know, a certain, like, situation.
Because the audio bounces into the mic. Anyhow, continue. Sorry, I was telling Wilson something.
So, if I'm going to a protest for that, I'm also expecting that to also happen to me. If I am peacefully protesting, it's a very real possibility that I submit to a police officer and they don't calm down and they don't calmly arrest me. They just kill me there.
Well, sure, it's always a possibility, Patrick, but 9 times out of 10, that does not happen, okay? You're standing up for the 1 time out of 10 that it does happen, right? And I'm sorry, but you can't half-ass a protest.
I'm not half-assing protest.
Well,
it's just a lot of, like, it's new territory for me.
sure,
So-
I think that the fact that you're going to a protest is very noble and good. Like, I think it's good to stand up for that, but you can't be, like, shy about it. You know, like, protests by nature are not shy things. It's a protest.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying, dude.
And that's, you know, I was completely, you know, I don't mind putting my name out there if I'm going to attend one. And, you know, I was hoping to be able to attend one within the week so that I could actually photograph the events and participate in it and, you know, actually spread the message out even more so. But, you know, you have to be willing to also, you know, attach your name to that event. That's just my perspective, you know. Like, I think people that participated in the civil rights movement, they're not ashamed of having their names attached to that by any degree. So,
Well, yeah, but like after the fact, of course.
no,
Some
I mean, not
people
just
did
in
put on
retrospect. They weren't ashamed even when they were doing it. You think King was marching down Selma, Alabama, with, you know, shame in his mind?
He was one of the few that was, like, well, not one of the few, but, like, there were people who would want to keep their identity a secret for their own safety, for the safety of the family, for the safety of people.
You know what, Patrick? I disagree with you. Okay? I disagree with what you're saying, because the fact is, dude, like, when it's an injustice like that, it feels like people want to put themselves out more to show how wrong it is. People aren't. If you bury your head in the sand, then that's counterintuitive to the whole thing of the protest. Like, it's people are putting themselves out there to protest, to show the injustices that's being done. If you sit there and hide and be afraid, then people are going to walk all over you, and people are tired of being walked all over.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I think, like I said, I think what you're doing is very noble. You can't be shy about it, you know, because then nothing's going to get done. You're leading for positive change in the world, but you can't initiate positive change in a shy manner.
It also makes the people that are putting their names and voices out there, it's almost like you're kind of handicapping them, because from your perspective you're like, oh, this is not something I should be putting my name on, so you're making, from your perspective, it seems like those people don't.
No, I've still been like posting shit on my story that shows like support. Right? I've been posting a bunch of like ways that people can protect themselves during a protest.
Yeah.
Sure.
Namely, like personal protective equipment. And actually, here, what was the one that I posted actually just today?
Pull.
Yeah, just on my story, like I posted on how to get like tear gas out of your eyes. So.
You just blew up that chick's spot.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
She has a face mask on.
Okay, thanks,
Oh.
Wilson.
Well,
Yeah.
very nice. She has very nice eyes.
Yeah.
They're very piercing.
Piercing.
Wait,
But-
who?
I don't
Listen,
know, the chick
guys.
on your screen.
This person? You can't see their eyes.
No. There was a face after the thing. There was a woman's face after that.
Oh, it's just someone on my Instagram.
So, Chase,
Yeah.
are you participating in any?
Protests?
Yeah.
No, we're still not leaving the house. And there was like one protest. I think I don't know the status of the protests in Dallas, but I don't think they're as frequent as New York or.
In Dallas, I believe they put a 7:00 curfew because of the riots.
I know there was a protest, but it was like one, and I think it was over. I don't know the status of them.
Well, I have like some friends that like live around there. Like, I think she actually does live in McKinney,
Yeah.
and she was posting about like how there's like a curfew now.
In McKinney?
I think it was either I think she was posting about Dallas, how there's a.
There might be. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind going to one. I just have to figure out when they are. And
Yeah,
we're
'cause San
still on
Antonio
this
had one
like
too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
we're still on this rigid thing because of the coronavirus.
Right.
But I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to going to one.
Yeah, no, I think it's beneficial that we do. I mean, a lot of people don't really realize it, but we're living in history right now. This is a big thing. This is a big moment.
Yeah.
And
Especially since it's happening during a global pandemic.
well, yeah, it goes to show that the rally cry, it doesn't discriminate. People go out no matter what if they really believe in their cause.
Right.
So, even though there's this dangerous pandemic at the moment, that isn't going to stop people from, preaching in what they believe.
I mean, it's stopping me.
Well, yeah, it's stopping Wilson because he'll fucking die. But, otherwise...
Well, not everyone has cystic fibrosis.
Yeah, well, don't discriminate against the poor kid. But what should we call it? But
Don't say I have CF. I'm trying to keep that private.
Wilson, you have CF.
Shut up! I'm trying to keep that private.
Yeah. So apparently,
So, look at how good I've sewed my pants up, guys.
Yeah, totally.
That's fantastic. Anyhow, Chase,
Look
what
at
were you
that.
saying?
I'm trying to figure out the state of the protests in Dallas.
Because Wilson just brought up a
curfews
good
for-
point. Curfews were mostly enacted in San Antonio, I think.
Curfews in some areas. Yeah. Well, they don't really. San Antonio is like 5 hours from here.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's why I was...
So, but apparently there are curfews in some areas. Yeah. Hey. Oh.
7 on the Dallas News's Instagram page. It says 7 p.m. curfew will begin tonight and last for, and I quote, the next several days.
Hey. I have to leave the podcast early because I have to eat dinner. So if y'all are still on, I can come back. But
Yeah, just, go do your thing and just, jump back on when you're ready.
all right. Peace.
Peace. What was I saying?
But yeah, there's a 7 p.m. curfew in Dallas for the next few days. And so basically until further notice.
Right. I mean, this is just a landmark year, I guess, in general. A lot of things are happening in this year alone.
So let's see. Let's recount real quickly.
Here, let's use the magic board to
Okay. So I'm gonna list like a lot of like potential.
No, not potential. List the stuff that's actually happened.
It's like the calendar of bullshit, basically.
All right.
We almost got sucked into World War III right off the bat.
That's not true, but okay, we'll put it on the list.
well, that was like a major concern. It got memed a lot.
It was an
so-
exaggeration. It was a meme. That wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, World War
But-
III.
We'll put whatever.
And then coronavirus happened in March,
Kobe.
at least
Kobe.
here in America.
Kobe.
Yeah, that's right. Kobe died. Let's put Kobe on there.
Kobe, that's what I was missing.
Fucking
yeah,
Kobe
died.
Bryant died. That's probably the worst one out of all of this.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry. It is. It sucks, dude, that he's gone. Especially the way that he went.
and then
Aliens were
Kobe died.
confirmed.
Kobe fucking dies. Coronavirus hits. Then we get murder hornets.
Well, yeah, the murder hornets. Well, they're on the West Coast at the moment. They're not here yet. So
No, they've been here.
on the East Coast, no, I haven't. They haven't.
No,
been
they've
out.
only been confirmed to be in Washington.
Yeah, only in Washington, dude.
Hold on, I could have sworn I.
No, they're only
No,
in
only in
Washington.
Washington.
And
I
the
thought
reports
it
are
was
actually from last year. They just became popular this year because people want to spread, sadness.
You okay?
Let's see.
Aliens weren't confirmed, Wilson.
Aliens were confirmed.
When were aliens? Aliens the sequel confirmed.
Aliens, the sequel.
I don't really.
Like the
Oh,
Ridley Scott
apparently,
aliens?
I don't know if it's a new study or if it's an older study, but apparently Saturn's rings are dissipating at a faster rate.
No,
than
no,
scientists.
that's an old study.
Oh, it's an old study. Okay.
Yeah, that's
So-
been happening.
I thought that was okay. We could just put down for 2020. We can also put what is it? The protests. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
instead of just putting naming every single
One-
person.
One target got destroyed in Minneapolis. Like absolutely.
Well, that's a
fucking-
result of the protest, so I'm not going to put that as a separate event.
Well, yeah, I know.
But yeah,
I know.
2020's been
absolutely fucking bodied.
yeah,
like,
no, it got fucked up.
Have you seen like the videos on TikTok? Like people are just like walking around like destroyed town.
No, I haven't. No.
There was just like one video of this dude on TikTok. He was like going, hello, police officer, I need your help. He was walking into like a completely destroyed and abandoned police precinct.
Jesus
He's
Christ.
like, he was like walking through, going like he was calling for a police officer.
Did you see the whole thing at Central Park where the guy almost got the police called on, or I don't know if he did, got the police called on him because he told this woman to put her dog on a
Put
leash.
the leash on her dog. Yeah.
Yeah. That was fucking cringy to watch.
Man,
I saw the
that
video.
shit-
What? Wait, I don't get that.
What do you mean?
What? Why would?
So in Central Park, there was this dude. He was a black man. He was walking around. Or I think he's a bird watcher. So he was bird watching in Central Park, and then this lady comes about. They both have the same last name for some reason.
I didn't
She
know
comes
he
about-
was bird watching. That's like the single most peaceful thing a person
Yeah, he was
can
bird watching. So then she comes out. She doesn't have her dog on a leash.
Right next to flower viewing. Continue.
Yeah, flower viewing. So she didn't. This white lady didn't have her dog on a leash, and he went, "Hey," he suggested peacefully, "You should probably have."
Can you put your dog on your
yeah,
leash?
can you put your dog on your leash? And she got extremely offended, and she started getting aggressive. And so he started filming it. He started recording it, and then she started going, I'm gonna call the police. And she was making racial remarks. She's like,
Aren't there signs to put a leash
she
on
was
your dog?
like, she was yelling on the
Most
phone.
places have that.
I don't know. She was yelling on the phone.
She was putting on the fucking theatrics on
Yeah,
the
she was
phone.
yelling on the phone. She's like, "I'm being assaulted by a African American
She
male."
sounded. She was like. She went from like sounding like pissed at the dude to just like on the phone. She was like crying.
She made it sound like she was being fucking attacked. And this.
Oh,
was
that's
just-
Karen behavior. That's what they do.
Yeah,
No,
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 she
yeah,
lost
yeah.
her job.
The
She
video
got
that I
fired.
saw was like calling
Yeah, that's just
Karen
how they
Karen.
act. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know.
But
I'm glad that she
Karens-
fucking lost her goddamn job. Like,
also,
it was-
white women are
Oh, she lost
offended
her
by
job?
the word Karen now.
Yeah, she got fired from her job. And then she also released a statement trying to like say that, I misspoke. I shouldn't have said that. A lot of people of color have a hard time in this country. Yada yada yada. She was like trying to backpedal. It wasn't
It didn't
working.
work.
No,
Yeah.
it didn't work for her. No.
Also, she almost killed her dog.
Yeah, because she
And
kept
that-
fucking like her dog was like
She was lynching her fucking dog.
she's carrying him by like his collar on the
Oh
neck.
my God,
She was
that's
like
terrible.
strangling him as he was like because she was angrily like debating this guy, so she just kept like strangling him. The poor fucking
Oh,
dog.
jeez.
She almost killed her fucking dog. I mean, it was just
Like, you could see the dog getting more and more desperate in the video.
yeah. Well, it's because she was desperate. She couldn't like she was wrong. I'm pretty sure knew that she was self-aware enough to know she was wrong, but she thought she had the ability to fucking do anything she wanted because of her privilege.
Oh, I am white woman. I get free pass.
I'm white woman. I go to Walmart and I get coupon. You know, it's just like
Wait, what?
no. I'm not gonna say
I
that.
feel
again.
like you're offending people who have that accent now.
Who have coupons?
Okay.
What accent am I doing?
I honestly don't even know what accent we were doing. I don't know why we did the accent because most white women aren't Russian, so I'm not entirely sure why that was
I was just doing an accent.
interesting.
Well, whoever has it, I feel like you're offending them.
More than likely. Patrick, you still there? Oh no, I think Patrick died.
Yeah, I think he did.
It's just you and me now, Wilson.
Oh boy.
This. So yeah, oh boy, indeed. I mean, we're live, but you know we could still edit it together, whatever happens.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. This year has just been fucking hectic. It's been weird. Hopefully, you know, next year is more calm, but I think by me just saying that, it's definitely not going to be. So, I don't know. Oh, his power went out. Nice.
Did he just message you?
Yeah, it says it on the corner. It says power went out.
Oh, jeez. Like in his whole house?
I don't know. Oh, well, there. This is me now. Let me know when it comes back. Yeah. All right, that should be good enough. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think we've had a rough year. I think most of the country is just upset and exhausted and tired. And
I mean, people were gonna get this way people were gonna like start protesting and doing things like this eventually, because like this whole police brutality has been going on for almost like it's been going on for decades.
it's been going
now.
on since the inception of the police.
Yeah,
It's just it hasn't, you know, it's an issue that's countrywide. I'd personally like to say that I think the police here on the East Coast, and by the East Coast I mean up here in like New York and the tri-state area, are somewhat more passive than some of the officers in the South and in the Midwest. And I only say that because of people that I know that live in those areas, and those cops are aggressive to no matter who the fuck it is. I mean, in Florida, I think it was in Florida in 2016, they killed a deaf man, or I don't know if he was deaf or mute.
Seriously?
They just shot him because they could.
Why?
I forgot. It was because he wasn't responding to commands, I think, and I mean, ever so obviously.
Like, was he not like doing sign language, or did they just not understand that that's what he was doing?
Well, it's Florida, so I don't fucking know, you know. But it's the fact that I think, you know, it's also the fact that a lot of the officers down there, also come from these very conservative white backgrounds, and not to shit on conservatives, you know, but a lot of them.
I'm not like the way I see things. I don't think it has to do with specifically white police officers. I just think given like people in positions of authority, a good amount of them just tend to abuse that authority.
More than likely. But
Sure,
I also think
maybe,
that people
like-
that have premeditated motives or ideologies before they step into that job, they're just going to continue bringing that with them to that job. So, like, if somebody's raised, you know, under this kind of like nationalist, racist pride, that isn't going to leave them the second they take an oath to become a police officer, and they shouldn't have a badge in my opinion. I think a good portion of officers don't deserve the badges that they have.
I feel like it's like from one thing that I've seen that improves police officers' behavior when it comes to how they do their job is just putting body cams on everyone.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. I think that cops should also go through psychological evaluation before they get a job.
Officers do go through psychological evaluations, just not when they start it.
Yeah, I know, that's the problem. Because if you're going to hire somebody, I think you should have them reviewed before they even get the job in the first place. You shouldn't give the job to somebody and then after the fact be like, oh, let's make sure that this person is healthy enough to be on the force. You know, it's like, I get why they do it, or at least I think I know why they do it. You know, they justify it in their minds because, like, oh, this officer, during his day-to-day, he's probably going to see some traumatic shit. But that doesn't apply to somebody who's already seen fucked up shit before they go into the force, especially, you know, ex-military. So, you know, that's never...
Either way, I think everyone protesting now has a right to. And at this point, I definitely think they should, because, like, I don't think, like, police officers using their power like this should have been going for as long as it has been.
No, I agree with you.
And like, especially after, like, after I heard the first, like, what was that case? That was that famous, like, case back in, like, the 90s?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, what's his name? Fuck.
It's like either way.
You mentioned it the other day.
Yeah, I did. Like,
wasn't it Rodney King?
Yeah, I think
Rodney King.
I'm surprised that, like, decades after that happened, it's still going on. It's like you'd think, why? I don't get it, honestly.
Yeah. It was the act of police brutality, 1991. And yeah, it's Rodney King. But remember, King didn't die during that. King survived.
Still, it was attack. Like.
But yeah, no, I'm not discounting.
It was excessive.
No, I know.
Very
I'm not.
excessive.
I'm just saying, you know, that it's just, if you look at most of police, most history, police history, I should say, dating back, you know, to its inception, it always seems like it's just always been this way. It's never changed. I mean, now the only reason that things are gradually changing as well is because we're starting to see more minorities start to become part of the force. And I think that some of those people, especially, I see more minorities wearing badges in areas like this. You know, I'm Hispanic, and I see some Hispanic police officers, and I see some black police officers, Asian officers. I see different walks of life wearing that uniform. And I think that in some way creates empathy with those select officers in their communities. I'm not saying it's exactly the case that's going on now, but I'm saying I hope that's the direction it's
Hold
heading
on, I want to
in.
say something, but
Yeah.
I'm not. But like, I'm gonna quickly do some quick. It's like I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about because I just want to be sure of something. Because like you're saying about you're talking about minorities in the force, but like I think. I'm not sure.
The point being is that they're still minorities at the end of the day, so they don't make up a majority of the force anyways, unfortunately. You know, even though I feel like they should, because I feel like the police would be way more empathetic if we had people that understood the struggles of those communities.
Because I'm not sure, because I read something online that said, like, there were police officers that were minorities there. They were black. There was just... I think there was like an Asian officer there as well, but like,
yeah, no, at Floyd's
when he was being arrested.
When he was being arrested, there was an Asian officer that
and
was
like
partner.
I don't think that's like you. And from what you're saying, someone who's ethnic would feel more sympathy towards the people getting arrested, but right there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't know, man. It's a complicated situation. The thing is, there's really I don't know what the answer is to fixing the police.
I always hear people saying officers should be held to a higher standard when it comes to like
crimes.
What they do. No, like with their job, like when it comes to following the laws, because they're supposed to like uphold them, they should follow them even more strictly than us. I feel like they're not hold like let's say, and clearly officers aren't really like penalized the same way for their crimes as like a civilian would be.
Right.
So I feel like
that's pretty obvious. Most of them don't.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like one thing that would help is if they break the law, I feel like the punishment should be more severe for them.
Right.
I feel like that might help.
No, and I agree with you, but it doesn't happen. It's almost like every officer has like a get out of jail free card.
No, that's exactly what they have.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
not gonna name any names, but a friend of mine, he performed some act of vandalism. I forget where, but he just kind of called up his uncle who works for the police department, and then because he holds a somewhat higher authority in the police department, they just let him go. So that's exactly what they have.
Yeah,
They have
exactly.
Get out of jail
It's
free
just
cards.
it's literally if you have pull, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's
you know.
like I just feel like
And I think that's the worst part about it because these people, you're literally giving them a license to kill. Every police officer basically has a license to kill if they consider it necessary, quote unquote. Which it never really is. It's never necessary to take a life. That should be the last option in any kind of scenario. And all the deaths that we've seen never at any point required force like that they put in, the kind of force that they use to detain them. So there's obviously, they have this mentality of like, oh, I can get away with anything. And, a normal person, a civilian like you and me or Patrick, if we were ever to get into a fight with somebody, our first thought wouldn't be like, oh, we can kill this person. Let's go. We'll be fine, right?
Like
a cop does it instantly with this knowledge of knowing that they're going to be okay. Somebody wouldn't take the life of another human being if they knew what consequences they were going to actually face.
no, yeah, like that's the last thing I try to do. Like
Right.
when it comes to a confrontation with someone, my first instinct would be to like shut that down immediately, like
Right.
prevent any fighting or violence.
The only reason those officers are doing what they're doing is because they know that they have the ability to get out of that scot-free.
And if it does come down to like me personally, if it does come down to fist fighting, I'm running as fast as I can. I don't want to get into a fight.
Right.
Mainly because I'll get wrecked. I'm not the fighting type.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, it's a problem. It's been plaguing this country for a while, quite obviously. But again, I really don't know what the answer is to fix the police force. I don't even know if the answer is to keep the police force. I don't know if it should be transformed into something else.
I don't understand how like laws will be upheld then if there's no.
Well, that's my
police
point.
force.
There needs to be some kind of policing, but I don't think that the way that we've been traditionally doing it is really working. Obviously, and so it needs some kind of
Shot collars, maybe, I don't know.
shot collars on cops. I mean, it would be entertaining to watch. The second that they get out of line, somebody just pushes a button. They're like, oh, immediately. Treat them like the fucking pigs that they're being. But otherwise, I mean, I don't.
I just feel bad for the cops that actually do their job right. They're being
Yeah,
like,
and
they're
that's a big topic that's being debated now.
because like I saw a post, because obviously most of the stuff I'm personally getting of this is from obviously social media. I saw a post of a police officer. He seemed like a decent guy who did in fact demonize the cops that like killed George Floyd.
Yeah.
Like he was on the side of like the public saying, "Oh yeah, he should just be those guys are murderers."
Yeah.
And like while that was a good thing to say out in public, who
Right.
knows?
Well, and the thing on top of that as well is a lot of people have different perspectives on this. Some people are, like, hey, not all cops are terrible. Other people are like, all cops are bad, no matter what walk of life they come
No,
from.
here's why people say all cops are bad. Because good cops still don't rat out the bad cops.
Exactly, and that's why people are upset about. They're upset that no matter what officer you are, if you're good or you've never hurt anybody in your life and you've been doing your job the way that it's supposed to be done, you still don't speak out when one of your fellow comrades does
something wrong.
Exactly.
So that's why it's kind of hard to like debate against saying, "Oh, all cops are bad," because
Right.
like to some degree, like sure, while someone themselves has never done anything bad,
The problem with that as well is I think, we don't know what every single officer has ever said. We don't know if there are officers that have come out, in defense of victims in the past, primarily because those stories don't usually get reported. Those aren't stories that make it to the media. And so I don't really know what the number of, actual police officers that took a stand actually is. You know, and I know people that are in the force that are, in my opinion, good people. You know, they actually care about their jobs and they try to take care of it in the most human way possible. You know, they see it as a duty, and they've never, as far as I know, they've never harmed anybody. So, you know, it's a very difficult question whether every officer is, you know, terrible. But then at the same time, you could also use a lot of people also use that excuse that, oh well, you know, you can't say every officer is bad because then you're using the same discriminatory language that they use. Essentially, if you just blatantly assume that every officer
generalizing
is
terrible, is bad.
Generalizing is in any form is not good. So, you know, it's hard to say whether, you know, coming at these officers with like this kind of idea of they're just all shitty is actually the justifiable thought. You know, I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know. I'd like to think not, because I like to think that at the end of the day, you know, we can all be forgiving. I'm not saying forgiving to the people that actually fucking, you know, did shitty things, but I'm saying, you know, I don't think that you should hate somebody simply because they decided to be an officer. Maybe they went into that job with good intentions, but I don't know, because some of them are really shit people, and then again, there hasn't been any change, even with all the quote unquote good officers on the force. There hasn't been really any progress. So, you know, and we still have people. We're still hiring individuals that are, you know, blatantly murdering people. So, you know, you have to ask yourself, why do we keep letting people like this into the force? You know, and these people are not, like old veterans in the force that, you know, are still sticking to their traditional ways, as some people might put it, quote unquote.
Traditional ways don't really work nowadays
Yeah,
anymore.
well, I mean, I don't want to call it that, but, you know, we're talking about people that are still, you know, young, in their 20s, 30s. These are people that were born in the 70s, you know, after the civil rights movement, and they're completely 70s or 80s, sorry. They're still out there murdering people. Even with all the context that they need, all the historical context that they need. I don't know. It's a horrible situation. It's complex.
There's someone out there with the solution, but sadly that person isn't me.
What's that?
There's someone out there with the solution. It's not me.
Yeah, I know. And the problem is that the people with solutions, or at least the people that are vocal enough about trying to find those solutions, are vilified. You know, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, they were both assassinated. So, you know, it's terrible that the two people that we look to when we think of, you know, Reformation and people that actually fought for civil rights, they were both killed for doing those exact things. You know, these people that we look up to and honor were killed for their beliefs. And it doesn't even just stick to them. If you want to go farther back than that, if you want to go all the way back to 1865, Lincoln was assassinated as well. He wasn't black, but he was the one that, you know, put down the Emancipation Proclamation, and he did all these different Reformation, the 13th Amendment, obviously, all these different things that freed the slaves of America. So even one of the earliest members of that, I would say, of that group of people that changed things, even he was assassinated. This country doesn't like people that think differently from them. You know, and whether it's 1865 or 1968, it doesn't matter. Literally, King was killed in, I think it was 1968 or 69, one of those years. I think it was 68. That's when he was assassinated. That's 103 years after Lincoln was assassinated. A whole century after Lincoln was assassinated, somebody still killed another man for trying to fight for his rights. You know, it's ridiculous, and I'd like to believe that within a century things will change. But given the fact that I just made that comparison,
It has been a century.
Yeah, exactly. My point is, I just made a comparison. You know, literally within a 100-year gap, two people were killed basically for the same. Those people were killed with the same motive. I'd like to say. So it's and again Malcolm X as well in the '60s.
Yeah, I just don't understand how like I for myself personally was raised by my mom to never use the word hate and to just completely leave it out of my mind. So that's why I just can't understand how people can hate anything really.
Right. I was raised, with that kind of pretense as well. It's just like, everybody's, the same. You shouldn't look at anybody and use their race or their financial stance as a way to, critique them or judge them or just make generalizations about their personalities. That was something that I learned from as a child, and not just with races, but also with just everything. Sexual orientation as well. As a very young child, I was taught to respect individuals.
I had to learn that on
gay.
my own, if I were to be honest.
Well, yeah, no, that I know that about your family. Yeah, your family's not entirely.
Yeah, not all of them are too like. My mom she doesn't like. Okay, so putting this gently, she doesn't want to be associated with them. She lets them do what they want, like they can get married or whatnot. She just doesn't want to be a part of it, and that's all it is. Me, I'm fine with it. I just had to learn. I kind of learned that on my own.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, yeah, just people are cool. Let them do what they want.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I again, from a very young age, my parents. I actually I've mentioned this probably to you before, but I was raised Catholic. And in Catholicism, it's still stated that homosexuality or just any form of anything beyond being heterosexual is just wrong. Catholics still believe that. I did not know that being raised Catholic until the 6th grade. When I got into 6th grade is when I first found out that Catholicism had no tolerance apparently for. Well, not everybody's like that, but the religion, the dogma in itself doesn't approve of it.
That's funny. I didn't know, like, similar. Like, I didn't go to, like, a religious school like you did. But up until around, same time middle school, I didn't know people, like, I didn't know there was a prejudice towards the gay community.
Yeah.
Like, I learned through it from people using words like gay or... using words like gay and such as that in negative connotations.
Yeah, no.
I didn't learn that like people didn't like until then.
Well, yeah,
and, like,
like,
it was
no,
kind
it's
of
funny.
more.
I had heard the word I had heard the word faggot, thrown around as a kid, and I didn't know that it had a gay connotation.
It was more society taught me that gay was at some point not accepted, and meanwhile, that same society taught me. Oh, accept them, and it was kind of like really confusing. But it's just like just
that's
whatever.
my point. When I was growing up, I never realized that being gay was considered a bad thing to some people. It was considered this negative aspect of the religions that we belong to, that we subscribe to, or just some people that aren't religious at all don't like the LGBT community, which is unfortunate. Fuck them regardless, but it doesn't matter. But my point being, growing up, I was ignorant about that. I was ignorant about and very naive about how people really felt about the gay community, and how just people were also how racist some people were. I also didn't understand racism as a concept growing up.
That I say remember that story I told you about my 4th grade Spanish teacher?
Yeah.
She actually taught me what racism was.
Did she?
I've told you this story before. There was this chick in my class. I guess I wasn't a fan of her. I don't remember. This was like back when I was in 4th grade.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like her, I straight up said I didn't like Cubans, not knowing that was a racist thing to say because I didn't know what racism was at the time. And then she comes up to me in Spanish because she's my Spanish. She's saying, "Hey, that's racist. You can't say that." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, I won't do that."
I just I was raised. I guess ignorance is bliss, because when you're never told that thing is seen as wrong to certain groups of people.
And I said that just to get under the chick's skin. I didn't.
No, exactly.
It wasn't.
But you don't. If you are raised with this ignorance as to what those things actually mean to some people, to you it never it never growing up. You never get this this idea that it's actually negative or it's a bad thing or whatnot. If you remain ignorant about the subject, then you just accept it kind of as it is. And that's what I realized. You know, when I was already I found out that it was wrong in the 6th grade, right? So at that age, oh look, Chase is coming in. At that age, I didn't.
Welcome back, Chase.
Welcome back, man.
Yeah, hey, what's up? Where's Patrick?
His power went out. Like about like 4 minutes after you you hopped off, he like his power went completely out. So Wilson and I have just been talking here about the protests and whatnot.
Oh.
We were
Yeah, I was
talking
doing
about when we
research
first learned what prejudice towards different groups of people. When we first learned what. How do I say this?
Well, we were talking about the protests and the police state and what, you know, the overall outcome of all this should be. And then we transitioned into, you know, kind of us growing up and us kind of being ignorant to the fact that racism and homophobia were even a thing. Like, we kind of grew up without really realizing that those things existed because our parents kind of just didn't teach us that they were...
inherently bad things.
Inherently bad things. Like, I didn't know that people thought being gay was wrong until I got to the 6th grade. You know, and by the time that I was in the 6th grade, I was at an age where you really couldn't convince me or sway me in any other way. Like, my opinion was already set. You know, I was like, hey, I don't think that being gay is wrong. And a whole bunch of kids were like, you know, it's fucked. You shouldn't do that. It's wrong. It's against God. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. But I was taught that God doesn't give a shit if you suck dick or if you take it in the ass or whatever. It doesn't. That's not important to him. Like, I don't know. Right. I think in that general sense, ignorance truly is bliss. Because if you are ignorant about something growing up like that, then you never have the ability to grow hate towards it. But, you know... And Wilson was just talking about how he discovered racism in the 4th grade.
Funny enough, I was the one that said something prejudiced, but then I just learned it wasn't okay to say.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you know, I don't know, man. In the, it's just, did you grow up with those prejudices? Like, did you know about those when you were a kid? Or did you find out about them later in life?
Yeah, I mean, I got a taste of it. I mean, the thing with, like, growing up in, like, a suburb of Dallas is, like, you know, like, you hear about them, but you don't really get to see the other side, right? So I was very lucky in the fact that my mom's family was in New York and my dad's family was here, and the fact that I kind of got to see both of those things. But, like, most people here, some people I know haven't had both sides, so they don't really understand what they're saying is prejudice or wrong, you know. But that's just like, it's like an ignorance thing. They don't really understand the other side of the aisle, so it's like,
No, and I, it's up here. It's a little different, I guess, in the way that I was raised because both my parents are Hispanic. They're not. I mean, like, I want to say they're liberal. My dad's more liberal than my mom, certainly. But my mom, comparatively speaking to, like, what her background is, she's pretty far removed. She's pretty liberal compared to her original traditional beliefs, or her family's original beliefs. So, you know, I was raised under this pretense that, you know, like, oh, you know, if you're, my mom taught me that somebody could be born gay. She's like, some people are just born, you know, with different preferences. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, you know, and she never gave any religious context to it. Like, I never, ever knew that Catholicism had something innately, had some kind of grudge against, you know, people that were gay or whatnot, or just hated them, or disliked them. I wasn't aware of that. So, you know, that was the way that I was just raised. I was under that pretense. Same thing with, you know, race. I didn't really know how, like, I knew that racism was a thing. I acknowledged that it existed, but growing up, I never really quite understood how rampant it was in some areas, or just in general.
Right.
I didn't get it. Like, I talked to every kid, and I never generalized anybody based on the color of their skin, or just their ethnic background. Depending on which country they came from. But
Right.
I don't know, man. It seems like that's what I was saying. I think I was watching. I don't know if it was a Louis C.K. stand-up or something, but he was mentioning whoever it was. They were mentioning how racism is kind of just an error in humanity. Like, sexism might always be around because men and women just constantly are, for whatever reason, going to have some kind of, some kind of issue with one another.
Yeah.
But I think that racism is just an error in that sense. It doesn't make any sense biologically, emotionally, evolutionarily. There's no reason for it. And I just hope that it eventually goes away. But that's being, that's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was telling Wilson that I thought it could go away. Wishful thinking again. It could go away in a century. But to be fair, Lincoln was assassinated in 1865 for what his Reformation and everything that he had done during the Civil War, and then 100 years later, Martin Luther King in 1968 is assassinated, also for attempting an attempt at reformation and changing the status quo, and that's literally a century later. That's 103 years later, and somebody's still killed
Right.
and assassinated for racially tense reasons, or regardless, the motive behind it was still connected to that topic.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
I don't know. I think that here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Is there is a deep root of racism in this country, right? So it doesn't just go away overnight, but
Right.
there has to be a point where we see that it's getting better. And the fact is, like, even back with MLK, and there were riots and stuff then too, and there were marches, and nothing has changed since then. Like, we're basically at the same place.
We desegregated, but the emotions that most Americans haven't changed, or at least Americans.
Right.
in
Well,
those areas,
the feeling is still there. Yeah, we
Yeah.
desegregated, but the feeling is still there.
Mhm.
People still feel marginalized. People still feel treated like shit.
Right.
And there needs to be change. It's not going to happen overnight, but there needs to be change. People need to see that it's headed in the right direction, and stuff like with what happened now and what's been going on, it feels like it's not, it's like, there are riots and stuff with Ferguson, and things cooled down a while, and then there was the coronavirus thing, but it feels like everything's reflaring again because nothing has changed, So I don't know. I just think people need.
If you look at areas like
right
over here
direction.
in Jersey and New York, and this firsthand, I feel like the diversification of the police force in this area has helped a little bit with the way that they kind of treat the community. Since they came from these communities, some of the new officers that are entering the force, a lot of them are now coming from those communities, so they empathize with them more. Obviously, I'm not saying that it's fixed every issue, and like you said, it's not an overnight thing. There's
Right.
obviously still a massive problem with the police forces up here. But I'd like to think that change is slowly but surely coming in as a result of, different kinds of people coming to the force. But, you've also said it yourself, in comparison to, the police in the Midwest and in the South, the police of New York City or New Jersey or just the tri-state area in general seem way more, I don't want to call them docile because they've done some horrible shit, but they do seem more tame in comparison to, cops from like Texas or Oklahoma.
Well, I think with New Jersey and areas like that, you guys are more compact. This is my thinking, and it could be completely wrong.
Right.
But from what I've noticed, being in both and living in both, your communities are more compact, so you know the cops more. You know what I mean? They're more a part of your community. You're more like aware of their presence. I mean, I saw way more cops up there than I do here. So when I'm up there and you see a cop, it becomes like a part of life, and that's who's there. That's who's watching my neighborhood. This is who is like, involved. But when you see a cop down here, you tense up a little bit. You don't know who that guy is. You don't know. And our communities are more spread out. For the most part, our communities are more spread out, and people like aren't as comfortable about cops down here.
Right.
And maybe there is that like overarching sense of racism down here that makes it more uncomfortable, or maybe that. But I mean, I'm a white kid, so I don't really have anything to like. What do I know about racism?
Input, yeah. No, exactly, because
racism, and I still feel uncomfortable around the cops up here. So what does that, or down here? So what does that say about them? You know what I mean? So it's.
I mean, I don't want you to speak for somebody that's not here, but has Michael had any, or anybody that had any kind of experiences or noteworthy experiences with the officers?
Not with police, but I mean, I've been there when Michael's experienced racism, and I do think Michael is luckier than most. I mean, obviously, I'm not Michael, and I haven't had all his experiences and everything, so I can't speak for him full-heartedly. But from what I've seen, it feels like Michael is luckier than most people who experience racism.
Right.
And I mean, and even I've seen him experience racism. So I don't know, man. But I mean, whether you're in the North or the South, I mean, racism is everywhere. I mean, look where the recent thing happened. It's in Minneapolis, which is the North. I mean, sure, it's the Midwest, but it's still a northern state, which, you sort of like expect those places to be more progressive, but it's everywhere. I mean, things have happened in Baltimore, things have happened in, Mississippi, things have happened in wherever. I mean, racism is everywhere. So it's not, I don't think it's a North-South issue. I think it's an American issue.
I agree with that.
I think it would be ignorant to say it's just happening in this part of the country. It's just happening.
No, I agree with you. I mean,
and I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying I think anyone who's saying that is ignorant. It's happening everywhere. And we need to change our overall system and think about our overall way of viewing things and way of viewing people. I mean, everybody in life is just trying to live their life and get ahead and do good. Nobody wants to, have their neck kneed on or have their like whatever it is. Nobody wants
to die as a result of how they look.
Even racist people to a degree don't want racism. I mean, it's like most people out there are just trying to live their lives and not tell other people how to live them. So I think, I don't know, it's a very like deep-rooted issue that's not going to get fixed overnight, and there's not a single.
And the question is like how do we handle the process of the police going forward? I was talking to Wilson while you were gone about what the answer to fixing the police really is. I don't know what it is. I don't have an answer. Wilson doesn't, we can only come up with suggestions.
Like, the most I suggested was, like, because they're supposed to uphold the law, what I said was, well, if they're supposed to uphold the law, just have the punishments and penalties for breaking laws be worse for officers.
Because they're supposed to, if they have to uphold the law, then naturally you should assume that they obviously have to have a stronger respect for the law.
Stronger. Well, they should be definitely held more accountable than they are.
Yeah.
Because I think what we see now, like, there seems to be this thing where, like, when police commit a crime, it's like, well, there's going to be no justice for that because he's a police. He's a cop.
I don't think another human being would rationally go immediately to killing somebody if they felt like if they knew what kind of consequence they were going to, like, if you got in a fight with somebody, you wouldn't immediately think, oh, I can kill them and get away with it. Killing someone would be your last resort. I think just as a human, that's just a quality of being a being. If you kill somebody like an officer does, in these situations, if you kill somebody so, unceremoniously with no regard for their lives whatsoever, and you do that, and they do it without hesitation, that means that those officers are completely sure and aware that they're going to walk away scot-free. They know for a fact that they have no penalty to face.
I think there's part of that mentality to it. I think there's, cops are under a lot of stress, and I don't think that's an excuse. I just think that, Okay. Sorry, Lily came in. I just think that, we need to, they do need to be held accountable. They do need to be, there needs to be checks. There needs to be, and I think that there's a lot of angry people out there. I mean, people are going to be shitty whether they're cops or not. Some really shitty cops did a really shitty thing. But on the flip side, there's cops out there who saw what happened and are like, well, fuck, now the crackdown's going to be on me because I'm a police. And they haven't done anything wrong. They're just trying to do their job and uphold the law. Because the fact is, we do need cops. Without cops, we're fucked. There's no, There
needs to be a system of checks and balances, and somebody has to uphold the law. Somebody has to...
There needs to be a system of accountability.
Right.
Is, I think, what it boils down to. Because, if there's no accountability for cops, then they're going to keep getting away with shit like this. And they're going to keep, that's the thing. And I think a lot of it is the people of, America have lost faith in their government and their government systems. All I heard during the coronavirus thing, which is still going on, is that the government fucked this up or the government fucked that up or whatever. And we have no faith for the government to see us through this. I have this app on my phone that lets me hear, radio stations from other countries. And I was listening to an Australian radio station to see their take on the coronavirus thing. And they were praising their government. They were really proud that their government handled everything effectively. Australia had a really low coronavirus, really low coronavirus numbers. They were and they were really happy their government handled things like that. And sure, maybe that's just one source, but still all I heard from our government was that they handled it terribly. So I think the people of America are losing faith in their government. It's like going back to the Constitution. It wasn't meant to be for 300 million people or however many we have now.
It also wasn't accounting for the advances in technology and society, over. But
it's still what we follow, and it was written by, frankly, a bunch of racists who owned slaves and who owned. So then it's how are we supposed to carry that into the modern day?
Right.
You know what I mean? And people have lost faith in our politicians and our government officials who carry out that Constitution and our government systems like the police and how often are people bad-mouthing the government? It shouldn't be that way. The government is supposed to represent the people. It's supposed to represent us.
Right.
So the big question becomes, how do we fix our government? How do we fix...
Well, I think part of the disconnect that people feel is also just the fact that we still use and rely on a party system. And it's kind of killed this sense of individuality amongst politicians. When you're voting for a candidate, you're no longer just voting for whatever that person really believes in. You're voting for the party that's kind of masquerading behind them. It's if most people nowadays that are going to go vote in November, people that are going to go vote for Biden, I can guarantee you are not really voting for Biden because of his policies. They're voting for Biden because they want a Democrat in office rather than having
another Republican.
Rather than having Trump. And it seems to be party over people, and people blindly support their parties, no matter who is who's representing it.
Right.
And I think that's the main problem. Is we as a society have been taught that party's more important than supporting the individual free thinking aspects of people the way that I think we should. I think we should be looking at a candidate, and they should be able to represent their ideas in an original, organic way.
Well, I have a few things to say on that. I think, first of all, the two-party system is terrible.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you on that.
You can't represent everyone's views within two parties. And sure, we have independent parties, but that has
They're not really going to get any attention.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that
there's
is
no
never
way you
worked
can.
in
There's no
past
way you
for-
can wrap up an entire perspective under a single like package. Like you can't go.
Yeah.
Oh, these Democrats. This is the only thing that they support and the things that they believe in. It's like
Right.
no, you're limiting yourself and you're also alienating an entire group of people from ever supporting you, and then it just becomes a war. You're not supposed to be at war with each other. You're supposed to be supporting one another and trying to find compromises. Bipartisanship doesn't even exist in this country practically. And
Yeah.
so, that's the part that hurts the most, is the fact that we are constantly fighting and yelling at each other rather than trying to cooperate, which is what we're supposed to be doing.
Right. And I also think that our candidates that we have set up, so who's it going to be this time? Biden and
Trump. Yeah.
Trump. Right. And previous it was Clinton and Trump.
Yeah.
I don't like either. I didn't like Clinton or Trump. I wanted someone different. I didn't like Biden and Trump. I wanted someone different. So whoever is nominated is going to. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I feel like a lot of people feel that or have felt that, because I talked to a lot of people after Clinton and Trump, after what was that, 2016, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't want either of these people. I guess I'm going to vote Trump, or I guess I'm going to vote Clinton because that's who I most identify with, but I don't want them. So whoever wins is going to be like,
Well, the thing
it's going to
is,
suck either way.
they already know who's going to win before the votes are even cast. Like, it's just, the United States has a way of just picking the person that is the most profitable for them, I'd like to say. And it's very obvious. You look at every past president, and it almost seems like all of them have been pre-selected for that role. And so
Sure.
I think that recently at least, almost every candidate that we've had hasn't represented the criteria that most people want them to meet. Most people here want a candidate, like I'm not saying Bernie was like the one that everybody wanted, but I feel like Bernie met more of the American criteria than the
Sure.
candidates that we currently ended up with.
Well, it
But-
feels like every 4 years we get farther and farther away from the people.
Right. Well, it's also the media. Remember, the media is also controlled by parties. So, like Fox News is very obviously in the pocket of the Republican Party, whereas
Sure.
CNN, MSNBC, all these other liberal networks are so obviously in the pocket of the Democratic Party. And you could see that with, like, for example, Bernie's representation in the media during this past the primary run. He was being shit on by both Fox News and the liberal networks. Both of them were like were finally coalescing to come against this common enemy, quote unquote. But you can already see that the Democrats didn't want him to be the nominee. So obviously the news, which is in the pocket of the Democratic Party, followed suit, and they made sure that the big media corporations made sure that Bernie wouldn't get any kind of good publicity or good PR from them. And a good portion of the United States of our population still, pays attention to what the news presents to them. They don't feel like they have a necessity to go out and actually research the topics for themselves and find out if what's being said is wholeheartly truthful. Now, I'm not saying that CNN or Fox News or all these different networks are just blatant garbage. I'm not implying that at all, but what I am trying to say is they definitely have biases and they just don't want to admit it. They masquerade as objective news, but they really aren't. They're obviously in support of a certain...
Yeah, they have a leaning.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to not have a leaning, right?
Right.
It's
But
hard to not
if you're
have-
going to have one, don't pretend like you don't,
Right, but Washington in itself, the concept of Washington and the construct of Washington, of these people who are in a different land, in a distant land far from, you live in New Jersey, which is 2 hours from Washington. Do you feel close to Washington? Do you feel close to what's happening in the White House?
No,
No.
not at all. Yeah,
No, not at all.
Yeah.
You're 2 hours from them. Okay? This concept of Washington is so disconnected from the people and the people's daily lives. I mean, back when this country was founded, it was very focused on what can we. It was from my understanding. Obviously, I didn't live back then, but from my understanding, it was very focused on people's daily activities, people's daily lives. Like, how can we help the modern man? How can we help the modern people? But now it feels like it's very like, how can we help the people in Washington? How can we help ourselves? How can we the modern man is so disconnected from the president now that it's ridiculous, but he's supposed to represent them. So how can he represent them if he's, 1,000 miles away in our consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. So it's almost like, I'm not a supporter of Trump by any means, but it's almost like, how can you blame him for not having our best interests at heart? I still think he's shitty, but how can you blame him if he's 1,000 miles away from us in our consciousness? How can you blame him if his problems aren't our problems? How can he see Trump's been rich his entire life. Mm-hmm. So
no, Trump is the least relatable person to be holding that office, honestly.
Exactly, and we need someone relatable. Yeah. We need someone relatable holding the office of president. That's what a lot of people liked. I feel, and I know a lot of people didn't like Obama, but a lot of people liked Obama, especially our generation, because he was a relatable president.
He was compassionate, he was empathetic, and he also knew how to talk.
He knew how to talk. He knew how to, he played basketball. He was a person. Like, he had a personality. Mm-hmm. And still within that, it felt disconnected. I still didn't feel close to the White House at all, it's like...
Well, because, they still have... Their priorities are still, corporate interests and other things of that nature.
Sure.
They're very disconnected from the rest of the world. And, smaller issues, smaller community issues, the ones that we see day to day, are never even like a footnote in the presidency. We have local governments to deal with that.
I don't think they should be.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be, but I think that there needs to be more representation, better representation, I guess. Mm-hmm. It just feels so like, this there's always that this experiment of America. This experiment of America is like, how long can we last for this way? Because it feels like our systems are crumbling. Because do you think those people who are out protesting right now, they are protesting because they don't feel represented? And thousands are, hundreds of thousands, however many people are protesting. It's not just 10 people.
Right.
It's a multitude of people who don't feel represented. Those people should not feel not represented. They should feel like someone is standing up for them. Someone is. And there are always going to be people who feel like it's unfair and unjust, but more people feel that they're not represented than do feel like they're represented. At least that's what it feels like to me. So the big question we have now in our day-to-day lives and in our society is, how do we fix that? How do we get people represented again? How do we get people a voice? How do we shift the scales of balance back in favor of the people as opposed to back in favor of the politician?
And you can tell that people are extremely disinterested in the system that we have, because most of the people that I talk to, and if you ask them the question, or you pose the question, hey, are you interested in politics at all? They go no. For the most part, most people will go no. And and it shows, because I remember that one of the main reasons Trump also won in the 2016 election is because a good portion of the country didn't go out to vote. They had no passion to actually go out and vote for their candidate. And the people that did have the passion to go do this were the most radical. And that's
well,
I'm not saying that was the only group.
I feel like a lot of people, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier, feel like they don't have a candidate. I didn't go out and vote in 2016. I'm probably not going to go out and vote in 2020 because I don't have a candidate. I don't have someone that I say they stick up for me. They understand.
Because everybody just feels like a figurehead. They're all like faux candidates.
Yeah, I don't relate to Biden at all. Mm-hmm. I don't I don't feel anything towards that.
I don't relate to anybody whose brain is melting. You know, I
Yeah,
just I don't.
that's a whole separate. I mean,
But you know, it's like you know, it's clear. You know, I can't relate to Biden. Out of all the candidates that we had this year, I gotta say that the candidates that we had for the Democratic nominee this past year was honestly better than the candidates that we had in 2016. Like, I don't think they were. I don't think it was much better, but I think the roster was more.
it was more diverse, and I feel
Yeah.
like there were candidates that could represent the people and who could, you know, who could do some real good or some real
Because aside from Hillary and Bernie, can you name a single candidate from 2016? Not from the Republic. I mean, obviously there were some notable Republican candidates, but
yeah. Did Booker run in
no,
2016? You didn't?
no.
Yeah, I don't.
That's my point exactly.
I don't know then. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
so
I remember the only one I remember was Martin O'Malley, who I think is the mayor of, or was the mayor of what's this of Baltimore. I'm not entirely sure what he was. I just remember he was one of the last candidates. He was like the last holdout, and then it was just Hillary and Bernie.
yeah,
But you know, I could barely remember any other candidate besides that, and I only remember O'Malley because he was the last one there. You know,
Well,
this past year we had, you know, Tulsi Gabbard, we had Cory Booker, we had Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar.
Right.
We had a
People
list
who-
of people that we knew by name and felt more connected to. But you know,
well, sure.
Mhm.
I think
I'm not
there's
saying they were all
two
great.
reasons for that. I think that first of all, we're older now than we were in 2016, or
Yeah, in
yeah,
2016.
2016, obviously. So we're gonna be a little more hip to it. But I also, oh shit, the floor just shook. But I think that also, there were better candidates this time. Like, I feel like there were people that we could. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard's like
It's a fantastic
30?
candidate. Yeah,
something. She's 30 something.
she's like 38. Yeah,
Yeah, she's closer to our age than Trump. I mean, obviously than Trump is,
yeah.
or Biden, or. But look who. It's still like look who ended up winning.
Right. No, and I personally, I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Buttigieg, even Bernie at his age, like all these candidates should have had better odds of getting the nomination than fucking Joe Biden. Like, look,
Sure.
I get it. Biden, you know, a lot of people know him because they're like, oh yeah, Biden, the dude from the last presidency. Yeah, I know
we
him.
know him from Obama's administration.
And so they're like, oh shit, yeah, you know, that dude. And so naturally, just because of familiarity, they're like, oh yeah, I like that presidency, so I'm going to like him. It's
Well, I think also that he's sort of riding Obama's coattails in the fact that he like
well, yeah. I mean, did you
like-
watch him in the debates? He constantly was like, and Obama and I did this, and Obama and I did
no,
that.
I tuned into one debate for like 10 minutes because I think those things are bullshit on their own. But
Well,
I
the
tuned
way
in,
they could be better. The thing is, debates should work. They just we'll tackle that later. But continue what you were saying.
but it's like I watched it for 10 minutes. The one time I saw Biden talk, just a random, like I wasn't like looking up Obama or Biden mentions Obama. I wasn't looking up anything like that. I just tuned in. And the one time I heard Biden talk, he goes, oh yeah, well when I was working with Obama or when I was doing this with Obama, it was constant Obama. And it was like, okay, I get it. Like Obama was a popular president. Like a lot of people, our generation liked him. Even if you didn't like his politics, you liked him as a person, whatever, right? But we don't need Obama right now. Obama's administration is over. He did what he did in his time. Okay, we need a new, fresh president to usher us into a new, fresh age. And a
Right.
lot of people, I think, in our generation feel that we don't need another Obama.
People are just so upset with Trump that they want to run back to what was comfortable, and even then, like I think the Obama administration had its shortcomings. You know, it wasn't perfect. I like Obama, but you know, I'm not afraid to admit that his presidency did have shortcomings, and I don't think Biden is the face that we need to revamp the party, or not just even the party, just revamp this country as a whole. I don't think he's that person, and I think even if he does win this November, it's just going to be 4 years of stagnation. You know, I don't think much is going to be done. And
Yeah, I think it's going to be 4 years of Biden trying to keep himself together, much less the country.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think the VP, whoever she is, because he said it's going to be a female candidate, but I think it's going to be mainly the VP running things, kind of like how Cheney ran the country instead of Bush.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be the Democratic version of that. Biden's just going to be sitting around. Oh, look, Patrick came back.
Yeah.
But,
My internet's finally back up.
nice. And you're not wearing a shirt.
Oh, not wearing a shirt.
How amazing. But, yeah, like, I don't know, man. I think, like, that's not as satisfying.
My eyes are closed right now.
I know, I'm sure that they are. Yeah, I don't think, like, Biden is the choice that we really should have gone with. And I think a lot of people are expressing kind of regret that we ended up with the candidate that we did.
Well, then we're just doing the same thing we've always been, that we did last election, because last election, a lot of people were expressing regret that we ended up with Clinton and Trump. And now it's Biden and Trump.
Well, my concern is also the VP choice, because depending on who is... my point is, whoever he picks as his vice president, in my opinion, I might be completely wrong about this, but in my opinion, his VP is going to be the president. So,
Sure.
if, and some people are talking, a lot of people are concerned about who he's going to pick, because basically whoever his VP is going to be in charge, really, of everything. Because Biden, I don't think, has the mental capacity to really keep up with most of the tasks that he has to. So, let's say something happens to Biden, God forbid, but if something does happen to Biden, then we're left with that person, whoever is the VP. I don't want it to be somebody that I think is just going to be as centrist as he's going to be. I don't want, another 4 years of stagnation.
Sure.
And there's concern that Amy Klobuchar is
a lot of people too, because that's an unelected official then in the presidency, which has happened before.
We don't really pick the vice president. That's picked by the candidate. So,
but I mean, especially in this time of like distress after the coronavirus and with the protests going on, and then it's going to get worse before it gets better. It feels like, and then we're going to get an unelected official, and I think that's going to be that's gonna kick shit off. That's not gonna be good.
It's also, just think about, I guess also, from this perspective, because he's thinking, from what I was hearing, they were thinking about Klobuchar being his running mate, Amy Klobuchar. Okay. I don't think Klobuchar brings anything new to the table. I think she's another very gray, boring centrist with no real, she was running up until recently, and she dropped out on Super Tuesday, I think. Because most of the candidates dropped out on Super Tuesday, and the ones that had already dropped out came in favor of Biden and gave him their endorsement on Super Tuesday so that he could get all those votes.
Well, okay, so I don't really know anything about Klobuchar, so I just looked her up. I think that, in my professional opinion, which is nothing because I'm not a professional, she is from Minnesota.
Already not a good look.
with everything that's going on, they're already questioning her. I mean, the first article here on the Philadelphia Inquirer is George Floyd's death in Amy Klobuchar's home state renews scrutiny of her criminal justice record. So she's
the DA. I think she was the DA of the state. So
so she's already under question in her home state for everything that's going on. So Biden would be a fucking idiot to pick her now.
Yeah, I know.
Right. But if he does pick her, and again, like you said, God forbid something happens to Biden, then we're fucked.
Right. Yeah, I don't trust Klobuchar's leadership. It's not like I don't know her personally, but given her track record, I just don't know if that's somebody that I want to be running the.
Well, not only that, but if if he goes, God forbid, it seems like he's not all there mentally, and he's old, and he's. It's just, if he goes, or if she ends up running things, people are going to go, I mean, she couldn't even keep her own state together. She's the one who started all this shit in the first place. Why do we want to trust her?
Right.
And then that's going to ignite another powder keg. So it's like, I don't think she's the right one. I think if Biden was smart, which, who knows? I don't have a lot of faith in him. If he was smart, he would pick someone young and like hip to what people want. Hip
Yeah,
to
like
what,
Gabbard, I would think so. Or, even if
Gabbard
he wanted to
or-
go the older route, Elizabeth Warren has a very liberal leaning, so, she'd be
Yeah,
another
I'm not
choice.
crazy. I'm not crazy about her, but I mean, if I mean, even someone like I don't think he would do. I know he wouldn't do this, but someone like Yang, like a lot of people.
But he already
Yang,
promised a female VP, so Yang's not a...
Oh yeah, I guess you're. Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
sorry.
I would personally love Yang, but I don't think that that's going to realistically
Yeah, well,
happen.
plus a lot of people upon hearing Yang initially are like, "Oh, this guy's crazy," but then he talks, and you're like, "Hey, maybe he's onto
No,
something."
yeah, Yang is sensible, and he knows he doesn't just put shit out there. He backs up his
Yeah,
claims.
he's got ideas to back it up.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't know, dude. I don't know.
I would have wanted. Look, me personally, this election should have been down to either Yang, Gabbard, or Bernie. I think those were the only three candidates that had interesting ideas and could have presented a fresh face, but they didn't make it. And somehow we ended up with Biden. And Biden wasn't even doing strong in the polls. The only reason he succeeded at the end was because everybody dropped out, and then they all endorsed him. So all of the supporters for those other candidates immediately just went over to Biden, because most supporters, will go wherever you tell them to go, unfortunately.
Right. Well,
So,
I think there's a lot of taboo behind Bernie too,
Yeah.
because of the he's a democratic socialist.
Which is not even right. He's actually, because the policies that he describes are actually social democracy. They're not socialism. And social democracy was something
But
that Eisenhower practiced.
a lot of people, especially on the right, see him as a democratic socialist.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
And
not going
that's-
to change
and
that
that's-
view about him.
And I gotta say, that's Bernie's fault as well. Bernie shouldn't be labeling himself
it's
that
his
way.
fault.
'Cause he
I'm
shouldn't
not.
be.
I mean, I supported the guy, but he really fucked himself on that one.
Yeah, he shouldn't be labeling himself something that he isn't. Because the
So-
other thing is, like I mentioned, Eisenhower, one of the most well-respected and probably one of the best presidents that the United States has had, practiced exactly what Bernie's preaching, social democracy, and it was one of the most peaceful. I don't know if peaceful, but one of the most golden era moments of the United States was his presidency.
Sure.
He was a two-term president and everything down the line. He was a well-known and to this day respected president. I think Bernie failed by not making those comparisons. He's saying, he could have said, I'm a social democrat, and he could have said, and one of the best social democrats this country has known was Eisenhower. He could have used that, and that could have helped him, but instead he kind of stuck to this whole, I'm a democratic socialist, which is,
which I think scares a lot of people on the right, and it's going to be hard to sway voters from the right with the social democrat thing or democratic socialist thing. So I think, it's almost, the people who backed Biden, it was like a smart play, because people on the right are not going to switch over to democratic socialism that Bernie is, so they're going to go, oh, Biden, maybe he'll sway some votes, but I don't think Biden's the guy either. I think
I agree with you on that.
I think we should have hedged our bets on Bernie and put faith in him over Biden.
Right. And it's also, what's also sickening as well is like just how much the parties care about self-preservation. Because remember, Gabbard was in the race until the end. She was in there pretty, I think she backed out pretty close, if not a week before Bernie dropped out, or 2 weeks before Bernie dropped out. She was in there pretty late, but she wasn't allowed to be on the debate stage. And I remember that at the end, she had one delegate. She had one delegate at the end. And if you have even one delegate, you are allowed to be on the debate stage.
Yeah.
But she's made it known that I should be able to be on that debate stage. But what these fuckers did, the DNC changed the rules so that you had to have a threshold now of delegates, so that you could be on that stage. So they bumped it up to a minimum of 10 delegates or something like that, because of just to keep Gabbard off the stage. And also they knew that the reason they were doing this, because Gabbard's a good speaker. Had she been on the stage, she could have taken Biden down. I'm not saying entirely, but she definitely could have defended herself. And also,
she could have held her own.
Yeah, and I think that's also scary to the Democrats, because they don't want the country to be like, oh, this is another option that we could go for, and then it pulls support from Biden.
Well, I think that both. both sides of the aisle are about self preservation. You know, it's both want to be in the White House, both want to be. It doesn't. It goes back to the issue. The issue now. It's not about the good of the people or the care of the people or what's best for the people. It's about what's best for the party, and that's. I mean. That in itself is some really socialist shit.
The whole stem of the issue just seems to go back to, like, I know I bring up this quote a lot with you guys, but it's a really good one where, like, the first president, George Washington, was completely against anyone breaking up into separate parties because it would have been the downfall of the country.
Yeah, we talked about that
about 200 years ago.
Yeah. No, we brought that up before you came back on the call. We were talking about how the party system is kind of one of the biggest flaws of the country right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, it just leads back to the fact that, you know, this is a prime example of that. Just how these parties really only care about preserving themselves instead of actually preserving the candidates.
Which, going back to what Patrick's saying in the George Washington quote, is leading to the downfall of the country.
Right.
I mean, to kind of catch you up, Patrick, is the problem with what's going on now seems to be the fact that people don't feel represented, and who's supposed to be representing us is the parties. So that's why people are protesting. That's why is because people feel marginalized and unrepresented. And I mean, there's a whole mess of racist issues and stuff in there too. But it's like, you know, people don't feel represented. People don't feel supported.
The elected officials that we've chosen don't do a good job of representing that anger and hatred.
Yeah.
You know, or trying to be understanding of it either. I mean, Trump literally called the protesters thugs on Twitter. You know, and that's what's that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he was basically inciting violence, you know, through that. And I don't know if you guys heard, but Twitter actually fact-checked his tweet.
They flagged him for the tweet because it was glorifying violence.
Yeah, so Twitter flagged him, and then Trump got mad at Twitter, and actually, I don't know if it was yesterday or 2 days ago, he signed an executive order limiting what social media companies can consider false information.
Limiting it to what?
I forgot. It didn't state what the guidelines were. But, like, Trump was so pissed off about it that, like, he says that basically social media companies need to be restrained from making decisions that could affect the best interests of, like, the government or whatnot.
But if a fact is wrong, you can't.
Right, but, you know, it's literally like a 1984, like, you know, situation. You know,
Big Brother.
It's a Big Brother situation. It's like he's trying to control Twitter now and all these other mediums because he got flagged. But, you know, Twitter wasn't wrong for flagging.
I got into an argument with my friend about that. We just both ended up calling him he's just being a big baby at this point. No,
yeah, he's being a baby. That's literally a child. That's a very childlike impulse decision. Like, that's not normal. An adult doesn't do that. A grown man does not, you know, get pissed off at Twitter for being called out on their bullshit, you know.
Sure.
You know, and because he has the power that he has, he was actually capable of making a change about it, which he did. I mean, I'm not saying it's a positive change. He actually did that.
Right.
So, you know,
but I feel like it's easy to say Trump did this, or Trump's being an asshole because of this, or Trump's doing this, and it's easy to beat down on Trump, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact is, like, whether you want to admit it or not, Trump is a product of our political system.
Right.
You know, I mean...
No, he's here for a reason. There's a reason he's in office. Yeah.
There's a reason he wouldn't have made it... I mean, you think fucking Trump would have made it through in the 60s or 70s? No way in hell.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think people have lost... I think the 60s or 70s is when people started losing faith in their government. But the reason Trump is here is because we have lost all faith in our government. And now that Trump is being an asshole and people are losing faith in Trump, it's like, what's left? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What's left? Where do we have to go from here? Trump was nominated because people were like, the government sucks. Let's nominate this guy from outside who's saying all this outlandish shit. But now people are losing faith in Trump. I mean, with his whole, like, coronavirus response and his whole, like, it's like people are losing faith in him. So what's left? If we can't have faith in our politicians and we can't have faith in the people who come from outside, the powerful people who come from outside, who do we have faith in? We need to put faith back in the hands of the people, not in the hands of the politicians.
Right. Well, their interests are in a completely different place.
Right.
And
Exactly.
And that's the main problem. I mean, Trump doesn't care about the everyman's issues. He pretends to do it for PR. With that whole thing that he did when he was still president-elect. Remember how he said that he was he was going to get coal job backs, the coal miner jobs back, or whatever it was. Again, it was the coal industry. He wanted to revamp it. And he did it for PR, and it was also, to tell basically everybody on the left that was complaining about global warming to fuck off, essentially. But he's from the get-go, he's been controversial, and he's obviously, he did that as a political strategy to make himself look better, and also to gain monetary. He has a monetary benefit from those decisions as well.
Sure.
So I don't. Everything that he does has some kind of premeditated self-benefit.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main problem. I think a lot of presidents are like that. Not all of them, but I think a good portion of them. Reagan definitely had some self-benefit. He didn't even mention the AIDS epidemic happened during the 80s, and he never even brought it up.
Right.
Until
I think,
right at the end of his presidency.
I think with the internet being how it is, with our new age of technology and our new age of, it's harder for presidents and public figures to hide these injustices that they commit, or the way they act, or who they are. So it's easier for people to check them on it. I mean, back in when at the 1800s, early 1900s, even up to the 2000s. I mean, Clinton got away with that Monica Lewinsky shit. Essentially,
he committed perjury, and
he got away with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really starting with Bush, I guess.
Well, Trump got away with his impeachment too. Remember, he got impeached, and
but we also know how shitty of a person Trump is. I mean, it feels like people still, even after the Monica Lewinsky thing, had faith in Clinton.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason for that is because Clinton was able to prove that he could, put the country in an economic surplus, which he did.
I mean,
I'm not saying that makes him a good person. What I'm saying, if I had to choose between Jimmy Carter or Bill Clinton to be my father, I'd rather have Carter, even though he was a wreck of a president. But Clinton's kind of is a piece of shit of a person. But if I had to choose who I wanted to be running the country, I'd pick Clinton, only because he knows what he's doing in that regard.
Yeah, but it feels like people still had faith in him as a person.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, even Michael, who supports Trump. I don't know if he wants me saying that, but even Michael, who supports Trump, thinks that
just edit that out in post. No big deal.
It'll be Michael who supports Clinton.
Even he who supports Trump thinks Trump is a piece of shit person, and that's his representative.
Yeah. Yeah, these people support somebody who they're completely self-aware is a garbage human being. Yeah, they have no reservations about it. They're like, no, yeah, he's a cunt.
So shouldn't we be trying to get people in office who are good human beings and will be having good for the country?
We shouldn't be having to pick the shiniest of two turds.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years. It seems we ended up with Clinton and Trump, and nobody wanted those two. And then we end up with Trump and Biden, and it's the same situation. Nobody wanted Biden, nobody wants Trump. The only reason Trump is on that ballot is because he's fucking president right now. But nobody wanted Biden, so it's it seems like there comes a point where you have to sit down and wonder: is this all orchestrated? Because there's no way that of the mass of the United States wanting what they want and being very vocal about it, they still don't get it. I think a conservative revolution started after the Love era, at the end of the 60s, and we've just kind of stayed there. I think after the Love era, the Nixon administration and whatnot kind of changed the way that things are viewed. And it permanently changed it. I think this country has been on this in this kind of fever dream for the past 50 to 60 years of how we are supposed to imagine our political, our representatives are supposed to be and act. If you look at Nixon and Ford and Reagan and Bush, they all share this like common like politician-y representation. They all like are almost the same in that regard, with very few exceptions. Like Carter was a little different. Carter was very progressive, but he wasn't very economically sound, and that was his downfall. And I think people are just so used to presidents like Ford and like Reagan and Bush, and now it's almost become a normality. The country obviously I think is yearning for change. We want somebody that isn't like that. We want to break the mold, but I think our system relies so much on representatives like that after the past 50 years there's clearly some kind of meddling, or so. And I don't think it's Russia. I think it's our own country, trying to force its own best interests. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my, because I think Kennedy was a fresh change for the country. A lot of people didn't like Kennedy when the elections were going on because he was such a controversial figure. He was very casual. He was very different. He was the everyman. He was Catholic, which no president had ever to that point been
Well,
Catholic.
he was young.
Yeah,
and
he was
I
also
think
young,
that's,
yeah.
I think that's what he was, a vital, fresh face for a new. Because if you look post World War II to pre World War II, right? You have a very, very different country. Okay, FDR seems to be sort of the turning point between. I mean, Herbert Hoover
Was not.
and
He wasn't well liked at all.
Yeah.
Herbert Hoover and JFK are what, 3 or 4 presidents apart?
Something like that, and they're vastly different from another. Yeah.
Vastly different country, right? And sure, FDR served like 3 or 4 terms, however much it was, but still, vastly different country. Okay, so Kennedy came in at a time when it would seem to be like we needed a fresh new phase for our country, a fresh new country. It was a whole, we're revitalizing, so I think after, when everything happened with Watergate with Nixon, we started losing faith in our presidents. I mean,
No, yeah, Nixon definitely caused that.
people rarely talk about the corruption of the presidents before FDR because people have faith in their president.
Yeah.
Post FDR, we hear about, how Truman was like, what Truman did and all the sketchy
Eisenhower
CIA
was probably the least controversial due to the fact that he was a respected World War II general.
Yeah, but he was also only in for 4 years.
No, I think he had 2 terms. He had 2 terms.
Oh, did he?
Eisenhower, I think he had 2 terms. Yeah, you could look that up if you want.
I don't know. Here.
But how many terms Eisenhower had? But I think he was a 2-term president. He was liked, and like I said, his policies are very similar to what Bernie was preaching. So before he left office, he actually warned the country of
2 terms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He warned the country of the military.
1961.
Yeah. So he warned the country of the military-industrial complex. Basically, he warned the country of like, hey, don't fall for it. Don't let the country spend our budget on more military spending. Don't let the military companies fool you. And it was one of his big things. And what do we spend most on in this country at this current point? Military. So it's not a coincidence. He knew what he was talking about. And Bernie himself has preached, cutting military spending for that exact reason and redistributing those funds to programs that are more vital to the American people. Sure. But, but again, going back to our original point, Eisenhower was liked. I think for the most part, he had his proponents, people that weren't in support of him, but it wasn't as loudly vocalized, I would say. Kennedy was kind of that turning point. He was also assassinated, and that was kind of like the death of like this icon or this blooming icon in Americana. And so I think Kennedy's death kind of completely changed the American landscape, the way that people viewed the president. It gave people this feeling of the president is just as vulnerable as we are, because people hadn't experienced that feeling.
Well, I think the
McKinley.
president was shown to be vulnerable in a vulnerable time for the country.
Yeah, because Vietnam was going on, and everything was.
And I think that in the past, four presidents have been assassinated. So Lincoln was assassinated after the Civil War, but he was still a powerful figure.
Garfield was assassinated,
And then the other two,
Garfield, McKinley
and Garfield, were assassinated during the Gilded Age.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very it wasn't a vulnerable time for the country. Yeah. But it seems that Kennedy was assassinated in a vulnerable time, and he was shown to be vulnerable.
Way. He was shot on live television in front of everybody. It was a different. Television, or at least broadcasting, didn't exist when McKinley had been killed, which is the last president that had been killed. So it seems to me like the country just kind of, I feel like, forgot what it was like to lose a leader. And especially in that fashion. Nobody had ever witnessed a president or any political figure, I think, really be killed on television like that, in the public's eye.
Right.
And so, that kind of changed the way that people viewed the office just from the get-go. And then we got Johnson, and Johnson was basically the figurehead of, the civil rights movement during the 60s. And I don't think he was honestly the best person to run it. I mean, he did make some changes. He was obviously at the head of it, and the changes that we did get were a result of Johnson. But I think had Kennedy been handling the civil rights movement, maybe it would have been slightly more progressive.
Okay, so Patrick just sent me this on the chat thing.
Yeah.
I think you guys probably got it too. It's the spending of 2015. So it totals $1.11 trillion, so $1.11 trillion.
And 54% of the military spending goes to military.
54% is military spending.
Yeah, look at that. That's a massive disproportion.
I did not know that it was that much.
But I mean, also, it's a little obvious because you look at what we have in this country. I mean, we have some of the strongest. We have one of the most well-trained military in the world, and we have some of the strongest weapons in the world. But the only reason we have all that is because we fucking dump all of our money into it. I mean, we have 10 aircraft carriers. Patrick, if you want, you can look that up. How many aircraft carriers the United States has?
Yeah.
Because most countries only have 1 or 2 aircraft carriers. We have fucking 15 of them, and we have the top of the line ones. So
I want to. So what I'm gonna do?
Okay, so I look up. Hold on, wait.
Mm-hmm.
Did it say 30? Commissioned 20, in reserve 3, under construction 3, planned 13. So there's an additional 13 planned.
Look up how many aircraft carriers.
It's a whole list of different countries and how many they have.
Okay. So give me another country. How many aircraft carriers do they have?
Most countries don't. Actually, we're the only country that's in the double digits.
Yeah, exactly. Why do we have so many?
Let's see.
It's like
the United Kingdom has 2. Thailand has 1. Spain 1. South Korea 1. Russia 1. Japan 4. The most, the number 2 on the list would be Japan and France, and they have 4, and we have 20.
Right. We have an excessive amount of items that we really don't need. That's what I'm trying to say. We spend so much on just basically new toys for the military, and we're spending money on a campaign in the Middle East that we shouldn't even be involved in. We still have people overseas doing I don't know what. Because you tell me, what are they doing over there?
Hey, can any of you tell me how many wars we're actually involved in? Does anybody actually
I don't fucking know? That's my point. I live in this country. My flag is being flown over in those countries, and I don't even know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, we don't know who we're at war with.
According to PRI.org, we are currently involved in 134 wars right now.
Name me 5 of them.
Seems excessive.
Like off your memory. Like don't read the list, Patrick.
I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Now read them off the list. I'm curious.
Okay, let's see. This was updated in December 2014, so it's a little bit out of date.
That's still a bunch more than I probably know, so go for it.
I mean, still, I imagine we haven't
You don't have
resolved.
to read all the wars. I'm just saying that, it's like we don't know what's going on, and we are the American people.
Yeah, I know. I feel like, I think people still felt like that, when Vietnam was going on or Korea. The difference is now that even in the technology age, we still don't know what the fuck is going on. Even with all this access to information that people didn't have during those eras, we still are basically thrown out of the loop. We don't know what's going on, and our government's making decisions for itself, and it's not even consulting with us at all. So it's I don't know, man. I don't want anybody running the country that has those interests in mind. But that's my point. Like, military spending is what takes over this country. It seems to be what most of us seem to focus on.
And another thing that is really interesting, because when you look at this this pie chart, military spending is at exactly in 2015 was at 53.71%, but veterans benefits was at 5.8.
Right. How many homeless veterans are there in this country?
How are you going to have more than half of your budget be to the military, and then
not support those that fought in it?
Veterans that come back are so little.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to look up to see if I can find a Norway's or Sweden's or Finland's discretionary spending chart, because normally
From what I hear, America spends 25 times more than the country that spends the second most on their military.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
we're talking about
I think
aircraft carriers, and the United States has 20, and in second place is Japan with 2.
I think I'm going to catch a lot of shit for saying this, but I think that normally Scandinavian countries tend to have the best way of life. They don't really get involved in wars. Mm-hmm. Their people are generally pretty happy and taken care of. Their prison system's pretty good. They're
and the Nordic model works as well. Because remember, Bernie kept preaching that the democratic socialist model that he was going for was based off of the Nordic model,
right?
Which a lot of people were concerned about, because the United States is much more massive than the Nordic countries put together. And I get that, but right. I still feel that it'd be difficult to transmute that system to the U.S., but it can be done.
I think it can be done. We just have to scale it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We do have to change some factors, and we would have more military spending than them, and a higher percentage. But
given the fact that we have to maintain all the military spending that we've already,
but it would still be significantly less than what we have now, and it would allow us to put money into other aspects, and I think create a higher way of life, because their way of life in the Scandinavian countries is very high. Right. So I'm curious to see what our spending is compared to theirs, but I can't seem to find a chart for it.
So you're trying to find what Finland's, for example, their military spending?
Finland, Norway, Sweden. Just find me one.
Finland.
Here, I'll try and see if I can.
It's just insane. I don't know. I imagine if we took that 53% of military spending, which is over half of the annual budget, if we took that 53% and redistributed it to the other programs that need it. Imagine,
even if we just bring it down to 25%, right? Let's just do a little quick maths here. Let me get a calculator.
Are you good at the maths, Patrick?
Not very good at the maths.
Oh, Wilson pulled up the Swedish government budget.
Oh, yeah?
2016 one. The highest percentile that they spend on is, so they 38.80% of their budget goes to Social Security, unemployment, and labor. And that's the highest of their chart.
And that's 38. So that's still less than our 54% on military.
In second place,
and that's for something for the people.
right. In
So,
second place,
like-
it's 19.6%, and that's just for the government, just general government expenditures.
Yeah, government spending, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like, if we were to just bring it down like by half, bring it to around like 25%, we'd still have $300 billion to put into the military per year. That's a lot.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, but I think it's also the fact that our country spends so much on experimental technology as well, because we were trying to get, I forgot, it was the F-50, or I don't know, I don't remember the model.
The thing is,
the jet.
Science
Right.
and technology falls on 3% on this list.
No, I know, but what I'm trying to say is, like, for example, this jet that I was talking about, which is an experimental like hover jet that they were trying to build. I don't know if they successfully did it. It was the F-35 or something like that, F something Raptor. Basically, it would succeed the F-22, but it would cost somewhere in the ballpark of like 1 to 2 trillion just to produce one of them. And so, yeah, and so like it's obviously a very accurate and efficient killing machine, because that's what it fucking is.
1 to 2 trillion.
But fucking 1 to 2 trillion for one plane? I mean, come on. It's
That's
not
That's our entire budget.
right. It's not fucking necessary. Why are we throwing? And
That's an entire college education for the nation.
right. And so it's like, stop spending money on things that aren't necessary. Who are you?
Well, there's that old anecdote that like so the
I don't
government.
like how you said that. Anecdote.
This government, I guess it's not an anecdote. It's a story I heard once.
No,
I don't
because you
know
said
if
anecdote, and I don't like how you said that.
It's a story I heard once. So the government spent $90,000, which in government spending is not a lot, but still $90,000 that could have been used for something else.
Yeah.
To test shrimp on a treadmill to see how fast they could run, and they found out that sick shrimp don't run as fast as healthy shrimp.
Nice.
Experiments over. $90,000 down the drain for nothing.
Right. Well, it's funny because have you seen that documentary I sent you yet, or I told you about Three Identical Strangers?
No.
All right, so I'm going to spoil it a little bit. I hope you don't mind, but it's just because it does delve into this topic.
Everybody,
No, I don't
there's
wanna hear a spoiler.
warning.
Yeah, well,
Because-
I'll put a spoiler warning in the thing.
No, but I don't want to hear it.
You know what's
I didn't
going
finish
on.
it.
Doesn't matter. You know what's going on.
No, stop.
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 Hold on.
So,
Go for it.
So in the movie, what the documentary is talking about is the fact that these 3 identical people that ended up being triplets that were separated at birth found each other when they were 20 years old or 19 years old in 1980. And so they find each other. They basically, a whole bunch of things happen. I'm not really going to spoil what happens, in their lives and the things that occur. But basically what they end up discovering is that the adoption agency, they all came from the same adoption agency, which was Louise Wise Adoption Services, which is a Jewish company in New York at the time. It doesn't exist anymore. And apparently what they were doing was they were separating babies. They were doing a test where they would separate identical twins or triplets and putting them in different households. And then a team of researchers would follow up with the children and go to each of their houses, never telling the parents or the kids that that they had siblings. And they would visit them, go to each house and visit them and perform IQ tests and these different things on them. And the study was this was an active study that was being performed by one of the best psychiatrists in New York, who was a Austrian Holocaust refugee. His name was Peter Neubauer, and he ran the study, and it was never published. It was never published. We didn't know where the funding came from, and one of the few times that he was ever questioned about this, because this became known after these triplets found each other. When he was asked about it, he was very reluctant. He was very elusive about it. And all he said was like, oh, well, we got some funding from some private companies and people in Washington. But he never specified.
that
So
is
people in Washington,
right there.
it was never published. We don't know anything about it. And then people in Washington, apparently, according to Neubauer, were funding this study to separate triplets or twins in general and putting them in different households, like it's some Nazi experiment shit. that we paid for that. Taxpayer money went into doing an experiment like that, from what the implications seem to be.
And then people wonder why people don't have faith in their government.
Right, and this happened, and like this happened in the
60s.
in the 60s. It started in 61 because that's when the triplets were born, and it ended when they found each other in 1980.
No, it ended prior because
Yeah.
the children asked when is these gonna stop, and then when they said
They stopped, but the study itself later on it's closed in 1980. That's what it says. But then
okay.
Neubauer, the publisher was never published, and then the study, Neubauer kept it secret until like he died in 2008, and when he died in 2008, the study was sent to Yale University and was put under seal until 2066. And then one of the triplets has died in 1995. He committed suicide, so there's only two of them left, and one of them called the Jewish board of I forgot what, which is in charge of the documents, and he tried to gain access to them, and they just kept going in a loop, like getting sent to this person, getting forwarded to this other person. Right. Basically, nobody knew or had an answer of how to access those documents. And after the documentary was released, they were given 10,000 pages from the sealed documents at Yale University to read through, but none of those documents had any formal conclusions. There was no conclusion to the study from the documents they uncovered. And most of the names were redacted to protect the identity of the twins and triplets used in the study. They also said that there are still twins or triplets out there that probably still don't know that they have a twin or a triplet. Or, sorry, a twin at all.
Fucked up.
Like, they haven't been told. There's a guy that was contacted from the original study, one of the guys that used to go to the houses of the triplets. And he said that, that there were a couple people have found each other, and some of them have made headlines, obviously, like the triplets. But that there were about he said there were like 4 to 6 other subjects that are probably unaware of the fact that they have a twin walking out about, around there.
Crazy.
So, it's, and this is insane. And my point, the reason I just bring that up is just to go to show that our taxpayer money is being used to do secret shit like that we wouldn't have found out about unless...
And also that we don't need to do.
Yeah.
Because how did that change anybody how did it change anybody's life?
It's not going to change anything until it gets released in 2066.
Well, no, because the triplets
even if it gets released, it's unconclusive.
Like, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
No, because they received the 10,000 pages from those sealed boxes, and again, it didn't have any formal conclusions.
Yeah, so it doesn't help anyone's life in a positive way. It doesn't help the American people. It doesn't
the whole idea.
It just ruined those triplets' lives because they didn't get to know their siblings.
Right.
And then
subjects.
That's it.
And I mean, the problem as well is, they conducted this study supposedly to put to rest the debate of nature versus nurture. Is are people, kind of born as who they are from the get-go, no matter if you separate them? Are they just going to innately be who they're supposed to be no matter what? Or are they going to, or is the different parenting styles going to affect their livelihoods? Yeah. And so, supposedly the fact that the triplets were so similar in personality, which is Bobby, Eddie, and I can't remember the other guy's name.
I don't remember either.
David Kellman. So it was Bobby, Eddie, and David, and they all seem to have extremely similar qualities to one another. And so, some people that were part of the study were like, well, if that was kind of something that they were looking for. They were looking to see if they would be exactly the same, because then that would prove that nature wins over nurture. Yeah. However, if the studies were so groundbreaking, if that was the conclusion, if it was so ground shattering, then why weren't they published? If something like that is so insane, then why wouldn't it be published? What are they hiding? And if they, to me, it just seems like they wasted money. They realize they wasted money, and they're embarrassed to really say anything about that study.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we've been wasting a lot of money in this country. I'm sorry to cut you short, Joseph, but how long has this podcast been going on for?
2 hours.
Almost 2 hours, I think.
We should
2 hours and 30 minutes.
cut it, right?
I mean, yeah, people have gone on for 4 hours, but yeah, we can cut it if you want. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But all right,
That's it.
I mean, let's just wrap up with some final thoughts. You know, you were saying about what is it? About the study. I mean, I don't know, man. Patrick, how would you feel if you turned the corner one day and you discovered you had a twin?
And I just found another me.
Yeah, like you weren't told, you just run into one. Because that's basically what happened to these guys.
I would murder both of them. I would murder you
would,
and your twin. I can't deal with two of you, and I would have nothing left to live for.
I would have to basically just like lemon grab him
Yeah.
because there can only be one.
I watch the movie when you get a chance, Chase, because this is why I was telling you might like it, because, you know, it would just further give you a distrust of the government.
I'll check it out. I've been watching that Jeffrey Epstein thing.
Because
So.
the opening, like
that,
20 minutes, the opening like 20 to 30 minutes are actually pretty lighthearted, like how as you get to know how they got to know each other. Like, you know, it's later on in the documentary you find all this dark shit and whatnot, but the beginning is so well done.
What's it called?
3 Identical Strangers. It's on Hulu.
Oh, it's on Hulu. I have Hulu.
3 Identical Strangers. It's a fantastic fucking movie. But yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, it would be terrifying if I just turned the corner and there was another me. Like, if I was just like,
oh god.
But I feel bad for the people that don't know that they have twins. Just imagine, there are people, because this study started in 1960. Those people are still alive. You know, they were just born.
Yeah, no, it ruined people's lives for absolutely no reason. That's what I'm saying.
There's no formal conclusion to that study. So that study was a waste, and now these people have, you know, they've ruined their lives. I mean, one of the triplets committed suicide because of he wasn't able to acclimate with his brothers throughout, you know, a childhood that they missed out on. I mean, it was...
yeah, because I imagine, like, suddenly, like, oh, this is my clone that's been living his own life while I...
And they lived within 100-mile radius of one another. Because David lived in Manhattan. Bobby lived up by where the Catskills, kind of, up by, in upstate New York. And Eddie lived in Long Island.
Oh, God.
That's close.
Yeah, so they were all literally right next to each other, and then literal people conducting the study. People conducting the study were going house to house. They were going to one brother's house, and then to the other brother's house, and to the other brother's house, and never told the families that they were doing this. You know, they were just telling the families that, oh, we're following up the kids as part of a study of adopted children. Essentially, that's all they were said. That's all they were told. So, you know, it's fucking insane that this shit happened. I showed that documentary to my mom, and she's like, I can't believe that this happened in this country. You know,
I can.
I mean, I know you can, because you already have those doubts. But, you know, it's like, it's hard for some people to come, like people that come to this country
Government,
with high expectations of what it's going to be, to only find out that they get away with shit like this too.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. It's just fucked.
Do you think if do you think the guys, like, throughout their lives, when one of the triplets like stub their toe or something, the other guys would just be like, "Ah, fuck, what was that?"
Well, you know, it's funny because that's part of what the documentary deals with. Not that, but specifically, but it deals with the fact that, like, they were so tired of being the same, because, like, they were tired of, like, constantly being these of, like, only being seen as, like, oh, we're exactly the same to each other, because the media and everybody that talked to them was only interested in their similarities. They were never interested in their differences and what they differed in. So they just kind of...
They weren't interested in them as individuals. They just saw them as, like...
Yeah, like the same person.
Well,
yeah, exactly. So it was like, so people were only interested in what were similar to, and to an extent, they were really interested in being similar to one another. They were falling in love with each other. They found their brothers. You know, they were happy to find one another. But, you know, like, when you constantly live under this expectation that you guys are the exact same, you're not allowed to be, you know, your own individuals. It can fuck up your life.
Yeah,
and especially if you weren't raised with one another. There's no way that you can learn how to deal with each other in a healthy way.
All right. Well, this has been a podcast, and
it's been a dark one, but I mean, we still had some jokes.
We've covered some heavy subjects, and I think I need a beer now.
I'm gonna go fucking get high as shit.
You want to play some Fallout?
I can't do that. It's illegal.
I know it's illegal.
I don't know. I might go watch this Epstein documentary thing.
Oh, You're not gonna watch.
right.
You go watch Three Identical Strangers, Patrick. While he watches.
I'll watch that when I'm done with this. I've got like one episode left, I think.
Anyhow,
We
yeah,
got 2 episodes left of what we're watching.
yeah. Let's go back and watch that. Anyhow,
Yeah.
guys, it's been. Let me just close it off. It's been wonderful having everybody on the podcast today. We talked about some heavy topics. I hope everybody enjoyed.
My
Please
power
don't
just
sue us.
like went out.
Yes, please don't sue us. So anyhow, guys, it's been great. We're closing the episode 5 of the podcast, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Adieu.